The Supreme Court has declined to legally recognize same sex unions in a landmark ruling. To talk more on this very short and quick interview, I have activist Namitha with me. Thank you for joining. Could you tell me what were your initial thoughts and emotions when you heard about the Supreme Court's verdict on same sex marriage? And could you explain in simple terms what this verdict means for the LGBTQIA plus community in India?
All right. So the initial reaction, I guess, was just shock and confusion, which is pretty expected, I guess, when a ruling like this comes out. Uh, Previously, when this court case was running, the Supreme Court was looking for a lot of information from both the center as well as, the litigants, the petitioners, and everybody, which is why it is extremely shocking that the Supreme Court chose not to decisively grant its own citizens legal rights, while it is quite honestly just a platitude to say marriage is not a right. How come some people enjoy this right more than others? How come, some people have access to their spouse's insurance while others don't? How come some people's lives are not legitimate when, there are people who have had quite an abysmal track record? It does not make sense for the Supreme Court to, I would say, shy away from a verdict that could really have changed the lives of its own citizens and also other countries around the world for that matter. Because some countries saw India take the lead and then legalized the existence of queerness or homosexuality, as they put it, which is why I think this is a giant blow. Uh, but at the same time, I don't think this was entirely unexpected either. We were prepared for anything, and I think that whether or not you are prepared for the worst, the disappointment is very real. Yeah,
Uh,
it's been a true uphill climb, and yet we fall again one more time.
Namita, when we say Section 377 is outlawed, but homosexuals do not have the right to marry, are we mistaking gay right to just right to sex with a person of your choice?
That's a very reductive statement, if at all, someone uses that as a basis for law, because sexuality or the act of sex is a very personal thing. And, when it is consensual and within the ethical, I mean, the ethos of our times, I think I do not understand the very regressive ruling of what is allowed and what is not. But then that was a fight that we had to fight with Section 377. The hope was that we crossed to much more nuanced dialogue, much more in-depth social research about how people within our country live and what our hopes and dreams are, which really irks me because one of the points that was put down was that the law cannot uh, the law cannot be used to fulfill young people's opinions, which I find very reductive and quite frankly very paternalistic, because the law exists to protect people. The people don't exist under the yoke of law in order to be disenfranchised by it, which is such a sad reality that we're facing right now.
True, actually. Okay, let me come to another part of today's verdict. No, the Supreme Court said that queer and unmarried couples can actually jointly adopt children. As you said, it was a
Mhm.
reiteration. But still, may I take this opportunity to ask you this? Co-parenting without being married, especially in a country like India, rooted in so in traditions and so high on attaching stigmas, can be doubly troublesome for gay people. Will we not be making it difficult for them to raise children, in this condition, or from schooling to traveling together abroad? Are they not going to face difficulties at each step because of it?
With respect to the reiteration, right? Uh, it is going to be, see, cishet couples who've chosen not to marry but co-parent children themselves go through so much stigma, and the stigma usually does fall on the um female passing, female identifying person for the most part. And on top of it, you also happen to have this very pervasive notion that, if two queer people adopt, then the child is going to be destroyed. So, this I remember brought about a very radical change in one of Kolkata's NGOs, where they said nobody gets to adopt anymore. The children will be raised in group homes. They will not have the prospect of being adopted by anybody for the fear of being adopted by a queer couple.
But isn't that
So
regressive?
I think that regressive has basically become the word of the day, because we were hoping for a more progressive ruling. But the idea is that we always go through cycles of regression and progression, especially when it comes to law in this country, as is demarcated by the Section 377 ruling altogether. I just think that it's a matter of time, but a lot of us, we are aging, and a lot of us would like to be married, if not for the social recognition of it, to be able to stand in equal footing with the so-called privileged citizens of this country, which I think that is a basic right. While this has been called a privilege, by the Supreme Court, I beg to differ, not very humbly.
Namitha, what would you like to see happen next to further the advance of LGBTQIA plus rights and acceptance in India?
I think the first thing that has to happen, whether or not this has anything to do with acceptance, is a protest. Because we, as very responsible citizens of a democracy, need to, uh, use our rights, leverage our rights to protest such a verdict, which at the end of the day has not provided us with anything new. While the parliament is going to be deliberating on how same-sex marriage is supposed to work, especially when the demographic of the parliament has literally uh, zero enmeshment with
Representation.
the people. Yeah,
Yeah.
and to demand our compliance and our votes for not uh, representing our interests in the parliament is quite frankly draconian. I think that this is a huge lacuna that the country has when it comes to representing the rights of its minorities.
The federal thanks Namitha for their time. Thank you for joining, Namitha. Viewers, for more such in-depth analysis, please do follow us. Thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.